You're listening to Permission To, the podcast where we dive into the science and soul of owning your worthiness as a perfectly imperfect human being. I'm your host, Sam Dew, psychotherapist, positive psychology coach, mama to a beautiful 5-year-old Amelie, and passionate advocate for living an inspired life. My aim is to show you that you have full permission to own your worthiness so that you can embrace your true nature and begin walking boldly toward your dreams. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Permission To. This time we are chatting with the amazing Bec Cuzzillo, who is a spiritual business coach for women who want to build abundant, heart-led, sustainable businesses that truly set their souls on fire. Bec's approach combines soulful business strategy with fully embodied feminine spirituality. Through her group coaching and mastermind offerings, Bec is on a mission to support women to claim their worth, master their mindset, and step into their highest vision for their life and business. She now balances biz-life with mum life, living in Canberra, Australia, with her husband Matt and their beautiful little Noah. So Bec, as you know, when I decided to expand my business with a baby, I had never done that before. Like, I started my first business when Amelie was 1. So I knew how to grow a business with like a toddler and when I had daycare, but I had no idea how to, grow and expand my business with a baby. And whenever I want to do something new and I want to really anchor into that belief that it's possible, I look for proof that it's possible. And you were my proof that it's possible because for those of you who don't know, we did Ellie Swift's first mastermind together. And Bec had, how old was Noah when you did that?
I think when I signed up, he was like 7 weeks.
Yeah. And then I remember I just got to witness you doing these like epic launches and growing your business so much with this baby, with this beautiful Noah, and like really loving motherhood as well. So you were like my example that like I didn't have to put my business on hold for a year. I could still, grow it in a way that felt really good to me. So I would love for you to share a bit of the story of how you joined Ellie's mastermind and how you scaled your business when Noah was a baby and what it was like for you.
I love this question. And it still feels ridiculous thinking back on that I made that decision and investment at that time. And actually what I did post that, because I remember, so I had this conversation when I signed up to that. I had this conversation with Ellie that was like, so I've just had a baby. I'm thinking of joining. Do I wait for the next round? Like, what do I do here? And she was like, well, if you're just, spending a bit of time working on the back end, putting some things in place, then like, let's do it. And you've got that opportunity to do some learning and do some setup. And, while, you've got a little one, you've got this time and space. And I was like, okay, cool. I could totally do that. Anyway, as you said, I did decide to launch during that period. I reckon it was only like maybe 6 weeks into the program and I was already launching something, which wasn't the plan. And I think that's probably the first thing that's worth noting is I didn't really have set plans and I kind of went with the flow.
Yeah.
And Noah was, as I hate using the term good baby, but he did sleep really well. And so I definitely didn't have that kind of exhaustion that I could have had. And I didn't really know what to expect, right? First baby, no idea what to expect. So I hadn't made the plans. But when I kind of got into it and I was doing that work on the back end, I was like, you know what, I could launch this program that I've launched before. So I didn't necessarily create anything new.
Yeah.
And I had my first 5-figure launch.
Wow.
Having just joined that mastermind, which was pretty exciting and very, very cool. I did make a few changes in what marketing I was doing and how many emails I sent out and stuff like that. So I think having joined the mastermind, I had like this renewed confidence and I had this these strategies that I wasn't afraid to implement when I was just on my own. So yeah, I suppose the biggest learnings I can take away and share from that is, making that investment. The decision was really around the fact that I'd had my business at that point for just a bit over 3 years, and I'd been cruising for a while. Like, things were going okay, but they weren't going, like, I wasn't growing and growing and growing like some people do. And I'd been afraid to make any investment. And I'd had this baby, and I was like, you know what? I need to do something different. Something needs to change. I need to make an investment. And I was ready for that. So I went in being like, this needs to happen. Something needs to happen. I need support. And I made that decision without any expectations of what that would look like. And I think going into motherhood in business that's probably a good thing, to kind of release any expectations.
I love that you didn't have any expectations, because it kind of comes back to that self-trust, right? Like, that I'm just going to trust that whatever decisions I make this year are right for me. But also what I love about your story, Bec, is that, like, I'm such a fan of investing in one-on-one coaching and group coaching. But I think your story really shows, like, there's no such thing as a right or wrong time to invest in coaching, because that's something I have a lot of chats within my community. People are often like, they think they need to wait till the perfect time to invest in their business or to invest in their life. But actually, sometimes investing when life's really messy, or you're going through a massive transition like becoming a mum, that's actually, like, it can be a really good time to invest, right? Especially when you don't put all that pressure on yourself that, oh, well, I'm investing, so I've got to, like, earn this much money, or I've got to push myself really hard. You're just trusting, well, I'm going to invest and I'm always going to be investing. So there's no pressure on it.
Yeah, 100%. I think when things are messier, that's actually probably a really great time to make that investment.
I think so too.
Yeah. I think releasing expectations so that you can fully trust and just know, like, whatever happens, this is the right decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've been asking a lot, like, is it pressure or is it permission? Like, coming from a place of, like, it's permission to grow, but there's no pressure to grow. That feels so much lighter, right? When you're looking after a baby as well, you don't need, like, pressure to grow, but you're giving yourself permission to take risks and to grow.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I love that. And so I guess one thing, you probably know this about me, but I don't really believe that work-life balance is realistic. Like, I think that term, it's an important term, because when people ask that question, like, it's an issue, isn't it? Right? Like, for women, like, and for men, like, how do we juggle business and mum life, or, being a parent, or just all the different roles that we have in life. But I think that balance can make it seem a bit unrealistic, and it can create a lot of pressure and perfectionism. And so I like to use the word, like, work-life harmony instead. But I was curious, like, how do you think that you create work-life balance or harmony, or whatever you want to call it, when you're juggling mum life and business? Because I get asked this question a lot.
I mean, I think releasing expectations, taking the pressure off, is probably the first thing I would say, because I think any of that stuff that comes up, what you're talking about, if you try and achieve balance, in air quotes, it feels hard when, things happen and you have to sacrifice one thing. I mean, there's always trade-offs, right? Like, that's the reality of having multiple responsibilities in your life. There's always going to be a trade-off between, well, this is the season of life that I'm in right now, so business has to look different, When I first had Noah, I was working 1 day a week. I was lucky to have my parents who would take him 1 day a week for me, which was amazing. We put him into daycare. Now I've got 3 days a week, so that feels really spacious. But I also know that means on a Thursday, Friday, when he's with me, that I'm not as present in my business. And I do still do some work on those days. And that's a decision I've made, but I also have to, like, take the pressure off myself for what that looks like. And some weeks that looks different, and other weeks that, you just have to kind of go with the flow, I suppose. The biggest thing for me has been investing in support.
Yeah.
and having people I can rely on to support me. And so that looks like house cleaning. So we have a house cleaner who comes every fortnight. That looks like investing in childcare. And I remember when we first put Noah in, working from home and having care is a really big decision to make. And
Oh, it is. Yeah.
and I think he was 18 months old when we put him into daycare. And I remember just being like, you know, it was hard those first few weeks, well, first couple of months probably, where we were taking him in and he didn't want to be there. You know, he was fine once we left, of course, but you know, those moments where you do the drop off and it's really hard. It's like, what am I doing? Like, I could just have him home with me. You know, that's been working for the last 18 months. We can keep that going. Ultimately, it's been really good for him socially, I think. And he learns so much at daycare. I'm certainly not the crafty, hands-on mum who organizes activities for him. So it's nice that he gets to do that with someone else. But yeah, so investing in support in that way, like in the home, and then also having support in my business. So I didn't have a VA or any kind of team support until after he was born. And I made that decision because I was like, I can't keep doing all of this on my own. I can't keep wearing all the hats. It's too much to do everything.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like that idea. We've got very similar values, I think, around, like, I see a lot of mums in business and they're kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to start a business at home so that my child doesn't need any care and I'm going to run my business full time. And then it's so stressful, right? Because like it's trying to do everything yourself. And I find it that a lot of mums get really, really stressed trying to do that. So I think having lots of support in the home for your children and then also for your business is so key, right?
And I think it's okay to make those decisions, right? Like you can be a full-time stay-at-home mum and have a business, but you have to be realistic around what your capacity looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the expectations you place on yourself in terms of how much you can grow your business.
Yes.
And how much income you can bring in with your capacity. You know, it's possible to grow your business, but it's about those trade-offs. And it's like, okay, well, what's the decision here?
Yes, I think you're right. Like it is possible to grow a business from home. Without having any care for your children, but you might need to do it a little bit more slower, a little bit more sustainably, or you might need extra help in the house, like around cleaning and I love the way you describe all the different trade-offs, like, and that's so much more realistic than this idea of like a perfectly balanced, mum and business life.
Yeah. And I think there's expectations on yourself too around what that looks like. I remember when I first started working from home, you have to be really clear around what that looks like, right? Yeah. If there are dishes in the sink and I'm working, I don't clean the dishes in the sink, right? Like those are still there at the end of the day, the same way they would be if I went to an office and worked.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a really clear boundary, isn't it? And I think like you got to get the whole family on board for that.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, you're not just like hanging out at home doing nothing, right? Like you are working. That doesn't mean you can't go and put a load of laundry on if you want to in the middle of the day because you've got that flexibility. But you're making that choice, right? I think it's always about being really intentional around your decisions. And I think as a mum in business, you have to be even more intentional with that.
Yeah, it's so true. At the moment, we've got a nanny helping us with Frankie 2 mornings a week while I work in my business. And a few people have said, oh, don't you feel like you're missing out on time with Frankie? But I actually realized because she's, we call her like, I think she's like she's kind of like a fairy and a Mary Poppins all blended into one. Like, because obviously Frankie's still napping a lot. And like, so say I'm working for like 4 or 5 hours, 2 or 3 hours of that is Frankie napping. And like, Anne will actually do so much around the house during that time. So I've actually realized getting that support with Frankie gives me more time with her, because I'm doing less. What I'm doing less of is stuff around the house. And I think that's the other thing too. You've got to kind of prioritize your highest values. Like if your business is really important and your kids are really important to you, then maybe it is that the housework is the thing that you just lower your standards with or get some help with, right? Yeah. So
100%. I think that's such a good thing to reflect on too. It's this, you know, everybody has an idea around what help looks like. And, you know, that whole, but you're sacrificing time with your child. It's like, actually, sometimes you make that decision to have some time in your business because actually that's going to be more supportive for you as a human. And if you're going to be a better mum because you've actually got some time to focus on things that are important to you outside of your kids, then the time you spend with your kids is going to be better quality, essentially, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think so. And just doing less housework, which I'm really not too phased about my relationship to cleaning and cooking.
Not at all. Yeah, agreed.
But I did have that because I've got this contrast, right? Because I had Emily before I started my business. Like I started my business when she was 1. And I had this whole idea that mums should stay at home with their babies and take like a whole year off. A lot of Australian women do that, right? And so that's kind of what I tried to do. But I was honestly quite, like, I obviously loved her and I've got lots of like happy memories, but I also remember being quite bored and quite restless. And like during her nap time, I'd watch a lot of TV, which is fine, but it wasn't really like meaningful or good for my brain. Whereas now, like if Frankie has a nap and I'm doing something on my business, I feel really inspired. So I kind of like to think about my business actually that it's giving to my family and it's giving energy to me and nourishing me rather than taking away from Frankie and Emily.
Yeah.
So
100%. And I think if you make decisions around what's nourishing for you, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no wrong decision.
No, there's not.
But it's all about what works for you and what supports you.
Yeah. And it's not going to be perfect or balanced. It's going to look messy. It's going to look messy, right?
It is. You know what's so interesting though? I think when you become a mum, you get really good at focusing on the things that matter and prioritizing things. And I think it only gets really hard is if you're putting all the pressure on yourself to have everything done 100% perfect all the time. It just doesn't exist, right? And then when you're a mum, it's like, well, now I've got this whole added thing, so we need to dial that back even more.
I love how you let go of like being a crafty mum as well. Like I'm the same. I'm like, I don't set up any special activities. Like
I'm just not a crafty mum. You know, we might bake something together every couple of months.
That's really good.
But I think making those decisions around, you know, who you are as a person as well is really supportive.
I think so. And it's also like helps with your identity as a mum, right? Yeah. And so for anyone who's listening, who's like maybe, you know, it might not even be that they're becoming a mum, maybe just like something else is happening in their family or they've taken on a caring role or, you know, their life is changing and needs more of them, but they're also wanting to scale their business. What tips have you got for anyone who is seeking to expand their life, their business?
I mean, I think the biggest change around becoming a mum is your time, right? Like you've got less time to focus on the things that matter. And so anybody who's in that position, whether they're even just intentionally being like, I just want to work less and earn the same amount or earn more. I think the key is to make decisions. And as we've been talking about, make those decisions really intentionally about what your time is and what you're going to prioritize, where your zone of genius is. And then make decisions around, okay, well, you know, there'll be times in your life and in your business where you'll have more time. And so it's like, okay, well, actually, I'm not going to outsource that thing because I've got the time to do it right now. But as you're starting to cut back on those hours for whatever reason, it's like, okay, well, we need to outsource things. what's going to be the best thing to outsource right now, like what's going to save you time. And I remember, a lot of people outsource their social media because that's the easiest thing for them to hand over. It's the thing that takes so much time, and so they make that decision. For me, one of the biggest things that takes up my time is writing content for social media, or writing email content for launches and stuff like that. And so I've had support with that in the past. But at the time, I didn't even think that was going to be the thing that was really supportive. But now I know, that's what I need. I need that in my life, right? I need that because it just takes me too long. And I know I can write well. Yeah. But I've also got so much content that can be repurposed for past things.
Yeah.
So get someone in to support me with that, and it just takes a huge load off, right? So it's like working out what it is that's going to give you back that time to actually focus on the things that matter and the things that are going to move your business forward.
Yeah, like essentially, if you're a coach, like you need to show up for your clients. And if you're like me, and I'm sure like you, Bec, like that's a favorite bit of your business.
Yeah.
Like nearly everything else you can outsource. So it's choosing like the bits that you love and that are your strengths and outsourcing the other bits, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've had the same person help us with social media. And I feel like that was like a golden period of my business where, if you're listening, you know who you are. Because you're right. Like, especially if you record like lots of masterclasses or you have podcasts, and someone else can listen to your content and help you to pull things out and create social media. And that does take up a lot of time in business. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's working out what it is for you that's going to be most supportive. And, I've got clients who tech isn't their favorite thing.
Yeah.
They're not a tech native. They don't like learning new things. And it's like, okay, well, we outsource stuff that, is going to take you forever to do because you don't know how to use that platform, right?
Yeah.
And so it's about making those decisions really, really intentionally. So I think my biggest tip is to work out what you're going to outsource.
Yes.
And what your budget is, I suppose, around that as well, and then making the best decisions for you. And then ensuring as well that your business model is going to support you to work in the way you want to work. And so, a lot of people, if they're coaches, they start off their business working one-to-one. That obviously has an income ceiling attached to it because you're only going to have so much capacity to work one-to-one with clients. And so what does a different type of program look like, or a different type of model look like, or how can you continue to work one-to-one but still earn the same money? Like, you have to make those decisions around your business model as well.
Yeah. And it's sometimes being creative. Like, I know that I've added a lot more Voxer support into my business this year because that's so flexible for me with the bub, that I'm doing a lot less one-on-one, like full long calls. So it's, there's lots of different ways that you can be creative, isn't there, with expanding your business, but not necessarily taking up more of your time.
Exactly. Or being more flexible with your
content. Yeah.
And actually that's in many ways going to be supportive for your clients on the other end too. And I always think about that.
Yeah.
It's like, if this is easier for me, well, then it's going to be easier for someone else too on the other end.
Yeah, I find my clients love Voxer because it's just so flexible, if you're working full time or you're a mama, you can send a message at any time and then the person can respond whenever they're available, right? So it's getting a bit creative with how people can work with you that works for you and for them.
Yeah. And is going to support you to build the business you want to build, right? And so it's kind of looking at all of the different aspects and then, well, this is what I'm going to offer. This is what's going to work best for me, my clients, and the business going forward in this season of life, right? Like, things don't have to stay the same.
Yes.
I have so many conversations with clients where it's like, oh, well, I'm putting together this program and I want to make sure that it's really great. And it's like, well, of course, we're going to make it as great as it can be. And then we run it and we get feedback and we make changes to it. Nothing's set in stone. You can do things differently. You can change things. You can improve things.
Yes, I've been having this discussion with my community a lot. Like, sometimes you just have to make the decision that feels best for now, and know that that's the best decision for right now. And in 6 months' time, it might not look like that and you might make a different decision. But I think we overwhelm ourselves and we think that we're making decisions for like 5 years' time because we think, oh, it's going to be like that forever. But it doesn't have to. It's your business and you can change it whenever you want to.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, you know, if you are going to have a baby soon,
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we know that in the first year, there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of changes quite quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it happen quite quickly
Yes.
with a small human.
Yes.
And so it's okay to be flexible and change things quite rapidly alongside that.
Yeah. 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 Oh, thank you, Bec. And so if anyone would love to work with you or just like follow you and keep in contact, what's the best way for people to find you?
So the best way for people to find me is Instagram. So I'm at bec.cuzzillo. Come and hang out.
Yeah.
And let me know if you love this episode.
Yeah. And are there any exciting opportunities or ways that people can work with you this year or coming up soon?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things coming up. I have 2 different programs that I run. So the next program I'm running is called the Spiritual Business Academy. That's my 8-week program for women who are in the early stages of their business and looking to put the foundations together. So that's the next program I have coming up. Mm-hmm. So if that sounds like you, reach out to me. I also have my mastermind program, which I'll be running again in October, and a few other different bits and pieces along the way. So come and hang out. If you find me on Instagram, you'll keep up to date with everything. Yeah. And I also have a podcast as well. So you can come and listen to me at Feminine Fire with Bec Cuzzillo. Yeah. There's an episode with you on there already.
Yes, there is. I love how organized you are with your year and like, you know, how you're mapping everything out. It's great.
I know. I like being planned. I've got a bit of a plan. It can be flexible, but I generally like to know, especially when you run like long-term programs. You know, my mastermind's a 6-month mastermind. Yeah. Those dates are usually set in stone, and then everything works around them.
Works around it. Love it. Oh, flexibility is so important, right? Well, you have a beautiful day and thanks for the chat. And yeah, I'm sure you'll get lots of DMs from everyone about this episode because it was so fun.
So fun. Thank you for having me on.
See you, Bec.